Right, bass lines. So a little tip with this particular app is not to get too bored of what we've done already with the drums. Let's just turn the volume down on the drum part here, right down to 0. That's the drum part, remember, that's the lead synth, and this is the bass. They all have slightly, well, they've got the same settings, but they work slightly differently, but all of them have volume on the left. So you can effectively, it would be much easier if it had a solo button where you could, or a mute, where you could just mute them out, but it's a simple app, so it doesn't have that. But when we're recording our bass and our lead, we probably don't want the drums playing just for now because it's a pretty straightforward feel. And if you just have too much going on, it's hard to know whether or not you've got the notes right in your writing of the bass and the lead parts. So we won't hear the drums we've just done yet until we've come up with a bass line that we like. But then we'll add the drums in after we've got something that we think is quite cool, and we'll see whether it works. And this is when the fun really starts. So let's go into bass. On this app, all the different sounds are selected. Again, same way down at the bottom. Let's just, I mean, there's quite a few. What was the first one that we had? Metallics, I think. That's quite nice. It's got a kind of square wave 80s kind of sound to it, and when you play it in a different place, the resonance goes up. So when you're playing on this particular app, you can actually kind of change the timbre of the sound a little bit by just playing it in different places. And actually, for the purposes of this demo, that's probably a perfectly decent bass line. But you can alter the sounds. Chorus is like a kind of widening effect. Drive is like distortion. Filter is the fizziness of it. Glide is how the notes will relate to each other. And resonance, again, is the kind of upper squealy sounds. So what I'll do is I'll just... It'll probably sound quite awful up against the drum beat that we just did, but I'll go with it anyway. And again, same as before, loop length is 1 by default, which is awful. Let's do 4, and then let's go in and record something. Let's just put a change in as well, like the turnaround. Okay, so let's record. It'll be the same as before. Press the record button up here, and then it'll just literally start recording as you hit the first beat. So if you had a syncopated bass line, which was the bass line that comes in around the beat instead of it coming in on the 1, 2, 3 or 4, but particularly on the 1, you'd have to actually play something on the 1 to make it start recording. But I'll show you what I mean. So it says play when ready. The notes that we're about to play start on the absolute boom, first beat of the bar, like this. Now that isn't actually what I was playing before, but you get the point that it'll start playing the bass line as soon as I press play. But I'll delete that. There we go. Now if I wanted to have a syncopated bass line that went chap, 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 I'd have to play it slightly differently. I'd have to go. Which is really difficult to demonstrate, but it's probably easier just to see on the grid, and actually probably just write it in on the grid as well, because basically you don't have the first beat there at the top. But without a metronome, it's pretty hard to hear what's going on there. So let's not worry about that for now. Let's just try our little riff that we came up with a second ago. Hold the phone a little bit lower down so it's not quite so resonant. So... Okay, I'm going to do that again because I'm not that happy with it. Okay, there we go. I could have actually done a few different turnarounds there, but for now that's fine. So let's use the same principle as we did with the drums. Let's go into grid, and what you can see here are the notes. So these are actually real, actual notes. So let's listen to it, shall we? Okay, so it missed the first ones off for some reason, but that's easy enough because I can just go... Whoops. Okay, now you're probably thinking, oh gosh, why are those sounding so much more fizzy than the others? And if you look closely, those are slightly more yellow. These ones are slightly grayer. That's because when I played them, the phenomenon that makes them fizzy or not fizzy or loud or soft is a thing called velocity. And velocity is really how hard you hit a keyboard. That was where it originally came from. But with electronic music, velocity can control a whole load of different settings, not just volume. So on these, what the velocity control is actually the amount of fizz, the amount of resonance. So to change that, you hold down the note that you want to change, and it brings up a little slider, and you slide that slider across, or you add in a wrong note, which you don't want to do, but it brings up a slider, and you just slide that slider down a little bit, and what will happen is the note will sound a lot more mellow now. So just to do that again, let's just change it again back up to where it was. So it brings up the slider, let's crank it right up to the top. It's gone bright yellow. Listen to this, this is completely different now. Okay, so let's just mellow that out a bit by just dropping the velocity down. There we go, and now it should sound similar to all the others. Okay, so that's the bass line. Pretty simple.